What if I told you that 80% of your book sales come from just 20% of your efforts? Let's talk about how to focus on what actually moves the needle in your self publishing business in today's episode. In fact, this is the continuation of a 12-part series in the Indie Author's Guide to Selling More Books. So this week, I'm going to get kind of into the weeds, if you will, some subjects that people aren't really willing to broach because they'll say, hey, you got to do this and you got to do that. Well, ultimately, it comes down to what brings the results. So let's go ahead and analyze those things where we kind of look at the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, if you will, in today's podcast. So make sure that you stay tuned. Winning book awards isn't just about recognition, folks. It's about boosting credibility, increasing discoverability, and proving to readers that your book stands out. That's why I use Book Award Pro, the easiest way to find, apply for, and win book awards. With tailored recommendations and an automated submission process, Book Award Pro takes the guesswork out of award competitions. I've personally used Book Award Pro for years now and have won 42 book awards for 12 different books. Now, my go-to approach? I enroll my new books in the Essentials plan, which is about $19 per month, and then I pay for a boost when I find a high impact award worth going after. Now, for some reason you're like, hey, Dale, I can't afford a boost. Totally fine. You can always just do it on your own, apply it there. So it's simple, it's effective, and has helped me build credibility as an author. If you're ready to add award-winning author to your bio and give your book the recognition it deserves, check out Book Award Pro today. Use my affiliate link at dalelinks.com/bookawardpro to get started. Special thanks to Book Award Pro for being a longtime sponsor of this podcast. One of the greatest ways to help support this podcast. Good Lord, a podcast. I think I've got to come up with something here. But the greatest way to help support this podcast, both in video and audio, is to support the sponsors because they obviously are contributing and helping keep the lights on here and continuing to put out some of this content. Again, that's dalelinks.com/bookawardpro. All right, let's walk it back. Let's talk about the 80-20 rule. Some people might have heard about it. Some people may not have heard of it. So let's kind of walk it back just a little bit, give you a little bit of a definition and origin of what it is. It's called the Pareto's principle. Essentially, it means 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. And I have found this rule, by and large, something that has helped me out since day one of being in this business. This was something I had applied to even when I was a personal trainer. I applied to it when I was an activities director. There was so much that I really put into the 80-20 rule. And if you're not using this to figure out what's working in your business and what's not, then I highly recommend that you consider this. Now, for instance, let's just say, okay, I've given you a lot of great marketing advice over the years, but I'm going to be honest with you. Book marketing and self-publishing is not a one-size-fits-all. Some things are going to work for some authors, and other things are going to work with other authors. But it's not always universally applicable. So sometimes you need to kind of take it with a grain of salt because you have to do a little bit of trial and error to figure out, okay, is this working? So let's just say, for instance, Reader's Favorite, there's a good example, gives you a free book review. And I've shared this countless times. I don't bother with the upgrade, and I probably get, I'd say 9 out of my 10 books reviewed over on that platform 100% free. It's wonderful. I know there's some people, though, that when they go to apply for something like that, they don't get any results. So, does it make sense for you to keep going there? Probably not. I mean, you could if you wanted to and hope for the best. Another great example. Let me just walk this back here. I am a big proponent of wide publishing. I believe that your book should get out to every nook and cranny in the world, but there needs to be a little bit of a realistic approach to things because having your book everywhere is, first of all, it's going to make your marketing efforts a little bit harder because you're hitting different avenues. But the other thing is you're going to be hitting some avenues that are just bringing you a big old fat goose egg. So, for instance, when I went to publish my latest book, Bestseller Book Launch Plan, available at every online major online retailer, easy for me to say, I had published in the previous 6 books in my series through the platform of Lulu. Now, love me some Lulu. They're fantastic. They're great. And the only reason why I use Lulu is for the Lulu bookstore. But I gotta be straight up with you. I have not sold a single solitary copy of those first 6 books over on the Lulu platform. Does it make sense for me to take that extra bit of time, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to publish my book through the Lulu bookstore? Probably not. Most likely, if I want to see better efforts in that avenue right there, I'm going to need to start directly marketing traffic to send on over to Lulu to buy through that location. Now, that's not to punch down on Lulu. There's many people who've had great success with Lulu Bookstore. For me, though, it's a pass, at least until I can get my marketing efforts aligned with my publishing efforts through Lulu's Bookstore. So those are just a couple of examples of just understanding what is moving the needle, because that right there is the definition. Because you can see 20% of your efforts get 80% of your results. Now it flips the other direction. 80% of your efforts gets 20% of your results. So to me, I feel like, for instance, the Lulu Bookstore situation, or even for another example, the reader's favorite thing, if that is not actively moving the needle, if you're not getting results from those avenues, does it make sense to keep pushing forward? Sometimes you can't be romantic about things. I love Lulu. It's great. It's just probably not part of my marketing thing. Now, this is not me telling people to not go to Lulu and the Lulu Bookstore. That's just my results. Results will widely vary. I've just given you just a little bit of an example. Now, how does this apply to authors in general? Most book sales likely come from a small percentage of marketing activities. If you want to sell books, you can't simply just publish and pray for the best. So for instance, this weekend when I launched my book, Bestseller Book Launch Plan, hey, I got it right that time. I already had some marketing efforts put into play. So I had social media pushes, I had the YouTube community tab posts, I had my email marketing newsletter, all those types of things. So there's probably a small percentage of those marketing activities that lends itself to book sales. And I'm going to tell you about one of those avenues here in just a second here. And of course, not all promotional efforts are equal. Some deliver huge results, others do nothing. And one of my favorite people to listen to is David Gaughran. I love some of his posts and some of his emails that he sends out. And he pulls no punches about what he believes delivers zero results. But the thing is, that is put through the lens of David Gaughran. That is the experiences that he's found by and large with himself, as well as any clients that he's worked with. That's not to say that some of the things that he recommends doesn't work for other people and vice versa. Because David is one of those types of guys, he says, well, guest blog posting's dead. It's a waste of your time. It won't get any results. That's all well and good, but you're going to need to test that out for yourself just to see if that does deliver huge results. You won't know unless you try. The goal is, when you're looking at your 80-20, all right, the goal is to identify high impact activities and double down on them. So let's just say, for instance, you have a big following on TikTok. We're just going to throw that out there. You're big on TikTok. Every time you post a video about your book, you're getting a dozen, 2 dozen sales. Great, go for that one. But let's just say, for instance, you have that same video clip that's put across, let's say, YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and over on X. All those avenues, let's say, don't really draw anything. Does it make sense for you to continue to publish that video across all those different avenues? Probably not, especially if it's requiring additional work. Now, if you happen to have some type of aggregate publishing software out there, so for instance, I've got one that's called Content Studio that works with social media. I can just blast that out to all the locations without having to go to each and every single solitary one of those. But if you don't have software like that, would it make sense for you to take that extra time to go to each one of those avenues despite it not bringing any results? You want to focus more on cut the bad stuff off of your plan, if you will, your strategy. If you're finding you're not getting results consistently in some of these avenues, it makes sense to let's remove YouTube Shorts. Let's remove the Instagram Reels. Let's remove X if that's not bringing the results. And let's go further into TikTok if that happens to be the avenue. Again, folks, I'm just giving you examples. This is not a prescription or me telling you that this is what you should be doing. Just a rough example. So you're going to want to make sure that you identify the 20% that brings 80% of your sales. Now, key areas where the 80-20 rule applies to authors includes your marketing channels. We already kind of discussed this one. Which ones actually generate sales? Is it email? Is it ads? Is it social media? Is it author collaborations? Find out which one of those are moving the needle. And you'll know if those things are actively moving the needle if you're paying close attention to your actual sales. That makes a huge difference. Now, another thing you can also pay attention to as well is anytime you're doing the email ads, social media collaborations, that you're tracking any of the activity going through links that you have. So I recommend different type of link creation software out there, even short links. So Bitly is a great one. That's 100% free. I think there is an upgrade. WordPress has got a plugin called Pretty Links. I like to use that one. So what I would do is create a link for each one of those different avenues so I could see the results and compare that to, okay, here's my reports of how many books I've sold. Here's the link that was being used. How many actual clicks did I have to the actual conversion of sales that I had? Also, book formats and pricing. What price points and formats work the best to bring the most revenue? Is it ebook, paperback, hardcover, or audiobooks? I know that seems kind of silly because I've told everybody, like from day one, publish every iteration that you can, if you can afford it, of course. Try to get that out there because it's going to give your readers potential options. So in the event, let's say, for instance, you send me a link and you're like, Dale, come check out my book. This is fantastic. It's only available on ebook. Great. I'm all in. I love me some ebooks. You can even suggest audiobooks to me as well. But then if you start mentioning paperback or hardcover, I'm going to tune you out because I just don't want to deal with those two formats. I don't want the actual print products because it's just going to collect dust on my shelf. That's a personal preference. Again, figuring out which of those formats and the price points for those formats brings in the most revenues, which you want to pay attention to. It's not so much that you're looking at, let's say, for instance, you're like, hardcover, Dale, I'm making the most amount of money per sale on a hardcover book. Okay, that's great, but does that translate to sales? Because if you're not selling one single hairy penny over on your book, then chances are super likely then hardcover doesn't make sense. So just figure out those price points and the formats that bring in the most revenue for you right now. And again, you heard me say it before, and I'll probably say it again, double down on it. Check out my latest ebook. If for some reason that ebook is selling really good, it's going to probably sell more if you verbalize that through your marketing efforts. Now, retail platforms, where did the majority of sales come from? I know, again, I talk about wide publishing, and I think a lot of people might mistake what I say of going wide as being amazing. But I know there's a lot of authors out there that are great when they are exclusive to Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing through the KDP Select program for their ebooks. That's great. I don't want to talk you away from that. If you're bringing in thousands in revenue per month through Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing Select, then go with that. But you also need to be very cognizant of the fact if it's not rewarding you in the way that you wish it should, then it probably doesn't make sense to stay there, does it? You probably want to wrap up that KDP Select campaign that you're currently on. As soon as that's up, go wide. You also want to focus on things like direct sales or which of the wide platforms are doing well for you. Draft Digital, Ingram Spark, Barnes & Noble Press, Publish Drive, so on and so forth. Figure those things out. So for instance, right now, I've seen a pretty good healthy uptick in sales on my Publish Drive platform. This is indicative of the sales that I'm making beyond Amazon because I've used Publish Drive for distributing my ebooks. And I've done it to a limited extent for the print books, but now I'm kind of leaning again. It's kind of one of those 80-20 rules. I wasn't seeing enough print sales through Publish Drive, and I was like, you know what? Rather than trying to complicate things, I'm just going to go ahead and just stick with the ebook distribution through Publish Drive. So that's just an example. Again, I'm telling you folks not to publish those iterations there. You want to analyze your content strategy also. Which types of content drive the most engagement? Is it videos? Is it blogs? Is it newsletters? Figure out what it is for you. So for me, I find that I get the greatest engagement through email newsletters, through my videos, of course, on YouTube. I've been very fortunate, been on the platform for 9 years now, so I have a decent following that when I put something out, I get great engagement on that. So those are just a couple of examples of what drives most engagement, because it's not so important that you're just posting everywhere. Buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. No, calm down. Calm down. Nobody's as excited about your book as you are. And so I think you're going to want to make sure that you're focusing on what does move the needle. Now, for some reason, you're putting out posts that says, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, and you're getting a ton of engagement and a ton of sales. I will shut up. But in the meantime, I would recommend that you be very selective what you do post across the online ecosystem there for you. Now, how do you analyze what's working? Look at your KDP or retailer sales reports. You got to pay attention to those things, at least on a weekly basis. Now, some of you are freaks out there. You like to go in and check it every other second. Don't do that. Stop wasting. That's 80-20 rule. You just put that on over in the 80% of stuff that doesn't get you any results. Once per week is pretty good. Maybe once a day if you're running ads. That way you make sure that those ads are going really, really well. Identify which promotions lead to actual purchases. So I make no qualms in sharing with you that I love Amazon advertising for selling books. But there are a variety and a lot of authors out there that do not share that same sentiment, and they feel it is a money pit. That's okay. If you feel that it's a money pit, chances are very likely you need to learn a little bit more about the platform, or you just got to move on. It's probably just not the right timing for you on something like that. So make sure that when you're doing something like, say, Amazon advertising, especially when you're investing something, that you are not throwing a bunch of money into this money pit and getting no results. And by the way, side note, if you're running Amazon ads, it's always important that you open up your reports, your real-time reports, as well as your Amazon ads, so you can compare and contrast, because a lot of the sales that are made through Amazon advertising is a little bit delayed, and it won't pop up into your reports until say a print book has shipped. So there's a little bit of a delay. Just keep that one in mind. Sorry, we probably should save that for another episode. Review engagement and metrics. You want to look at things like email open rates, your CTRs, or your click-through rates, if you will, on your ads, your video watch time. That's something I pay a lot of attention to, and even the email open rates, and figure out what is working. So for me, right now, I'm actively working with AI to help me tune in and refine my email marketing approach. I found that I've had a really good open rate here for the past year, over 50% open rate, which is pretty stellar. That's well above industry averages. And but I really am not settling until I hit 100% open rate. I want to go for that 100%. So I'm continually working with AI to refine things like my subject lines, and of course the things that I talk about in each one of those email newsletters. And it really helps me kind of dial those things in. Again, I've found something that works really good, which is email marketing for me. I've doubled down on that, and I've even, optimized that workflow. So I'm not sitting here banging my head against the wall trying to figure out what's a good email, subject line that I can put here that authors are going to go ahead and open up for. Now, cutting out the 80% that doesn't work. It's so important. You need to look for common time-wasting tasks. So, for instance, posting endlessly on social media with no strategy. If you're just simply, like you heard me say in a previous broadcast, you say, I don't know, I just like social media, just not, I'm just going to go ahead and post every day. Dale said I should post over there every day. It's going to help me sell books. Sorry, folks, it just does not work that way. Sure, there are some outliers out there that can just go ahead and put a bunch of buy my book posts out there and sell so many copies. But the bottom line is a vast majority of people that just go over and put no value into what they're putting into social media, chances are very likely it's not going to convert to a sale. Chasing every new marketing trend instead of refining what already works. That's another one. Like, stop chasing these trends. I will share some of these things for you, but don't just go from one thing to the next. If you have something currently that is working, double down, triple down, go all into that. Don't worry about the noise. There's always going to be a shiny object out there that you can chase after. Forget those shiny objects. Go with the tried and true methods that work for your business. And of course, there's spending too much time on things like graphics and aesthetics, or things that just don't drive actual book sales. I have seen countless authors that, boy, they've got such great heart and they're excellent authors, but sometimes they're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and put some A+ content together because it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to share that across Instagram and YouTube. And okay, did it convert to sales? Because if it didn't convert to sales, all that time you took to put together these nifty looking graphics is wasted. And I don't want you to waste that time. Now, how do you eliminate or automate these tasks? Okay, well, you can delegate repetitive or low impact tasks, things like design, formatting, and editing. I like to hire a pro. I think a lot of people have already heard me time and again. I've even had them as sponsors here on this podcast before. Midblark, one of my favorite ones. They handle my interior formatting. They handle my cover design. Why? Because I'm not good at it. And also, I would rather just pay them to be done with it because they have the expertise that I don't otherwise have in my own skill set. Also, you're going to want to make sure you automate marketing where possible. So email sequences and scheduled posts. So for instance, I've got that aggregate social media platform called Content Studio that reaches out to all the different social media platforms. And all I have to do is I can go through and schedule these posts out to promote books or maybe even share some value added posts. So for instance, this past Friday, when I was pretty much scheduling the announcement of the release of Bestseller Book Launch Plan. How many times can I say this in the podcast, by the way? I bet you guys don't know that I got a new book that came out. You want to make sure that you are putting out good value through some of these different apps and such. So there's a number of them out there. You can look up Content Studio or Hootsuite's another one, or there's a number of them out there. Just kind of look around. By the way, there's some really good deals at AppSumo. If you guys have never heard of AppSumo before, go over there, look for any type of social media automation software, and they'll be able to probably hook you up with some type of a lifetime deal. I don't have an affiliate link. Just look it up, appsumo.com. Shift focus over to high converting strategies like email marketing, all right? I've said it time and again. Email marketing can be super effective. Yes, it's slow growth at start, all right? I understand that. New authors are probably like, oh my gosh, I've got 6 people and like they never open up my emails. I get it. I've been there before. Thing is, everybody starts at 0. You just got to be consistent with it. There's also direct promotions and of course ads that you got to consider. Now, let's transition over here to the last portion of things because I know I'm going a little longer than usual. Create a smarter, streamlined marketing plan. So you want to make sure you prioritize those high impact actions. Double down on the top 20% of efforts that actually lead to sales. Set clear marketing goals focused on conversion, not just engagement. Yes, engagement's nice, but we want to make sure that it's actually converting. So let's say I've posted something in my Facebook group, which by the way, I don't have that anymore, but I've posted one as an author in my Facebook group, and we got a bunch of people that are interacting. Boom, 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 boom. But we've seen that the needle hasn't moved anywhere. It's not selling a single book. So you got to kind of be aware that engagement isn't all that if it doesn't lead to conversions. You want to make sure that you measure results regularly and adjust strategies based on the data that you find. Now, examples of like high return on investment marketing activities can include growing and nurturing an email list, running well-optimized Amazon ads or Facebook if you happen to know it, or even BookBub ads. Building relationships with influencers or other authors for cross-promotion. I cannot stress to you enough that this is a very isolated business of being an author because we're sitting behind the keyboard, cranking away those words, we're marketing these things, we're promoting it, but I'm going to tell you, if you just take a little bit of time out of your day to meet other authors, and especially other authors within your niche, it's going to help you explode because you're not just working on your own, you're working with other people who are like-minded and have similar goals like yours. So consider working with other authors. Create evergreen content that continuously drives traffic. Hello, you want to know why I've got 2 YouTube channels and a podcast, an audio podcast? It's because it continuously drives traffic for me. I create the assets, it sends things over. Search engine optimization could be some other things, blog posts, etc., etc. All right, so that was a lot of information, but I'm going to go ahead and recap some of these things here in just a moment. I want to give a quick shout out to the fine folks, my sponsors, Book Award Pro. You want to win book awards without the hassle? Book Award Pro makes it dead simple by finding, applying for, and helping you win the right awards for your book. I've used it to win 42 book awards across 12 books, and I personally recommend starting with the Essentials plan and boosting when you see a high-value opportunity. Try it today at delllinks.com/bookawardpro. Now, here are my final thoughts and some key takeaways for you to consider. First of all, 1, focus on what's already working. Don't reinvent the wheel. Now, if you happen to be new, it's going to be a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks at first, or networking with other authors to find out what has worked for them and trying it out for yourself. It's so important that you don't just test something once and then go, it's a waste. You're going to want to make sure you're consistent and you try and you apply, figure out why is this not working and how can I get it to work. So there's so many times where I've had some authors come up to me, it's like, I did a YouTube channel and it flopped. It was a waste of time. Okay, why? What happened? What did you specifically do to make it better so that way it could convert to more sales. You also want to make sure you cut out time wasters and automate low impact tasks. The less that you have to worry about, the more you can focus on the most ideal things in your business, like, I don't know, writing your next book or even promoting your backlog of books. Double down on the strategies that drive real book sales. I said double down and even said triple down at least 4 or 5 times in today's podcast. So make sure you're doing that. Now, I'm going to just encourage just something here. Take 15 minutes today to analyze your book sales and your current marketing efforts. Identify what's bringing in the results and what's just keeping you busy. Because there's a lot of busy work out there. I could tell you all of the different busy work out there that I avoid to this day, but that would be an entire podcast in itself. You're going to know when it's busy work. I invite you to just share some of your experiences and comments and send any questions. You can join me over on the Discord community. That's dalelinks.com/Discord. I'd love to hear from you. I'm there on a daily basis. I'm off on weekends, but you catch me every weekday. I will typically just hang out and chat with people. So I'd love to have you come on and join. And the very next podcast, folks, we are going to be moving on to part 4 of the 12-part series in Mastering Keywords and Categories, Your Secret Weapon for Sales. It's going to be an exciting series, so make sure that you stay tuned. This has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you next week.